want to raise that issue, particularly what the president had to say about Republicans, that 37% of the Republican Party is Trump's party. Larry Hogan, the former Republican governor of this bluest of blue states. Don't know how he did that for 2 terms in a row, but he did. He's joining us right now. Governor, very good to see you.
Great to be with you.
What did you make of that comment from President Biden, Governor? 37% of the party is Trump's party.
Well, obviously he's trying to score points, and I just heard the intro where he said that it wasn't a very high bar. Well, he's not making it up to the bar, and the latest poll came out today that said Trump was at 28% rather than 37%. But obviously there's still a chunk of people that really liked President Trump's policies, and maybe are taking a new look at is he the one that can win the election in November, and is he the best choice for us?
Right now, he's the only announced choice for you. Right. Do you expect that field to grow?
I certainly do. I mean, there's a whole lot of people that are considering the race, and I don't know exactly the timing and when everybody's going to make their decisions, but I would suspect that he's not going to be the only candidate in the Republican nomination fight.
There's talk that you will be among those candidates. Is that true?
Well, I'm certainly giving it very serious consideration. We've been really successful 30 miles outside of Washington, where everything appears to be broken and nothing but divisiveness and dysfunction. I'm in one of the bluest states in the country with a 70% progressive legislature, and I got them to cut taxes 8 years in a row by $4.8 billion, and I had the biggest economic turnaround in America. So we're taking a close look at it.
We talk about the outsized role the former president plays. Of course, you and he have had run-ins, and you've been very blunt about how you feel. But if he ended up, even with a potential crowd of other contenders, as your nominee, would you support him?
Well, I don't think he is going to be the nominee, but, look, I'm not one of the folks that focused my time just attacking the president. I just was one of the few Republicans that was willing to stand up and say when I disagreed, and I did that, on a number of different issues. But a lot of his policies I supported. I just don't think he happens to be our strongest nominee to win the election in November. I mean, we've lost 3 elections in a row. We lost the White House, and I think we've got to figure out a candidate that can appeal to a broader audience of people and that can win over swing voters. Otherwise, we don't get to govern. We keep losing elections.
So what you're saying is, if he were the nominee, you don't think he would win? Biden would get the best of him again?
Yeah, I'm pretty confident that we're pretty far off from picking a nominee, and right. He's certainly got a shot, and he's got a solid group of people that still support him. But there are an awful lot of people. He's down from he was at 90-some%. In the past 60 days, he's dropped another 10%, and the latest poll today was he's at 28. So he's not heading in the right direction.
There's a lot of talk, and I don't want to look at the race, as if it's just this black and white, but that a lot of his supporters would welcome that is Donald Trump running as an independent candidate if it didn't work out getting the nomination. What do you think of that kind of talk?
I mean, I've certainly heard that, but right. I'm not. I don't think that's the right thing to do. I think he ought to get out there and compete, and he's already announced that he's running, and I believe he's running as a Republican, and he's got a lot of support. There's no question about it. But I think it's not going to be a coronation. I think it's good to have a debate, have more voices, and have people out there talking about how we can get the party back to being successful again, and how we can turn the country around.
Now, if you entertained a run, you'd be among at least 4 or 5 prominent governors who are eyeing the White House. And the benefit of being a governor, of course, you're an executive, you're in charge, and a lot of your colleagues who served in a similar role or continue to say that gives them an advantage. Do you think someone who's been a governor or has a leg up on, let's say, someone who's a senator or was?
I think so. I mean, I've always felt that way, and I think we've had some great former governors that became president and did a great job. It really is a training ground for you're an executive, you're making important decisions, you're running an executive branch of government. I had 90,000 employees and a $50 billion a year budget. It's different than being a congressman or a senator, and you're out there making arguments and you're involved in issues, but you don't have the executive experience of running something. So I think there are going to be a number of governors, and I think governors are a good place for us to look for leadership at the national level.
Governor, I'd be curious. I know a governor gets to see some classified documents now and then. I don't know how you respond to what's been happening, and you're hearing about this president, the former vice president, who knows how many others down the road. What do you think of this whole classified document mess? And if you became president, how you would try to police it.
Well, I think it is a mess, and quite frankly, we don't have all the answers, and I think we need to get to the bottom of it. But it's just like everything else in Washington. There's a lot of kind of noise, and I think the average person just doesn't understand. You got Republicans blaming Democrats, and Democrats blaming Republicans. And look, we ought to get to the facts and have a fair investigation and try to keep the politics out of it. And we probably ought to consider, whether we're overclassifying some of these documents. We just don't know at this point who had what documents and why, or how dangerous they were. I think we should get to the bottom of it. We should try to fix it so it doesn't continue to happen. I think Rob Hur, who was the Trump U.S. Attorney for Maryland, is a really sharp, fair guy who's going to do a thorough investigation. And I think Mike Pence handled it the right way. He came out right away, admitted the mistake, and cooperated and apologized. And I think that probably he handled it better than either President Trump or President Biden did.
But obviously, it is something that's out of control, to your point, Governor. I'm just wondering, many of these cases have involved, aides or something who are packing up for the boss. In this case, it could be the former vice president, even the past president or the present president. And they see this stuff. Now, whether they start rifling through it themselves is anyone's guess. But the fact that at least President Biden and Vice President Pence have said they were unaware, that's not quite the same with President Trump, as you know. Is that itself even more dangerous than being aware?
Well, I guess it potentially is pretty dangerous, and which is why I think we got to get to the bottom of it and trying to find a fair and objective process. So it's not just all politics, and we actually try to fix a problem that appears to exist. And we don't know who packed up the documents, what the documents were, whose responsibility it was, but it's a problem and it's a mistake that we got to figure out how to fix.
Governor, finally, if I could weigh in, or have you weigh in more to the point, sir, on this debt limit crisis, whatever you want to call it. We're not at the crisis stage yet. But the president and the speaker are going to meet tomorrow in the White House. The president's already made it clear, raise the debt limit, do not attach any spending cuts to it or even make spending a part of these discussions. How do you feel about that?
Well, look, I've been probably the most successful Republican governor in a deep blue state, and we worked with a 70% Democratic legislature to turn a $5 billion deficit into a $5 billion surplus. And we got them to cut taxes. We turned the economy around. We didn't do that by just demanding it was going to be this way or that way. We did it by sitting down and having real open, bipartisan discussions and trying to find a middle ground. I think it's good that the president and the speaker are sitting down together, but the fact that neither one of them sounds like they want to negotiate, I mean, you can't get anything done unless you're willing to talk and you're willing to listen and you're willing to find some kind of an agreement. I'm not sure where that is or how we're going to get it done, but it should start with, kind of transparent, open, and honest discussion and everybody listening to the other side.
All right, so far that's not happening, to your point, and I'm just wondering what you make of the fact that the president won't budge on this, says you shouldn't make these two events tied. Republicans, particularly those who helped secure Kevin McCarthy as speaker, are holding him to that and saying it's kind of, an undebatable point here. Some think they'll push it as far as not only shutting down the government, but bringing us right up to the brink. How do you feel about that?
Well, I understand we have a serious difference of opinion here, but the only way you ever achieve compromise, the only way we're going to solve this and step away from the brink is if both people are willing to have the conversation. If both sides say we're not willing to negotiate or compromise in any way, then we're not going to reach an agreement. I mean, that's just a simple fact. And I can tell you we're right down the road from D.C. and we had to sit down and figure out. Sometimes we had a very strong position. The Democrats had a completely opposite position, but we found agreement and we got things done. And I think that's what's missing in Washington. It's what's broken. And I think most people in the country are very frustrated with both parties' refusal to actually negotiate. Yeah,
that is probably an understatement, Governor. Thank you very, very much. Good seeing you. Larry Hogan, the former governor of Maryland.